What's going on, everybody? This is AJ, your host of the Blue to Green Podcast. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. It's around that time of year, trying to be a little festive here. On this episode, I was very, very fortunate to be able to sit down with an old friend of mine, Mr. Rick Bucher, who has been on the podcast before and who has come and told his tale of what happened to him in the past. He's also a big dog. He's been on some pretty big podcasts around the country, and I'm extremely fortunate that he has given me the opportunity to help spread his message. Rick is a retired firefighter of 27 years for the Scottsdale Fire Department here in the state of Arizona. He was on the technical rescue team. He is an accomplished athlete, and everything that Rick has ever done in his life, he cranked up to 20 out of 10 and has always been just the best at whatever he's done. His mission has changed from being a firefighter now to telling his tale of how it almost killed him and how post-traumatic stress is a thing. But most importantly, out of post-traumatic stress is post-traumatic growth, and how you can get past that, and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Pardon me. Rick can be booked and talked, or you can communicate with Rick at rb603.net. That's his webpage. I'll put all the information at the bottom. And his story is truly incredible, and I appreciate you listening. If you're getting anything out of these videos, I do ask that you do the like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, leave me an Apple review. I sincerely appreciate it. It helps out the podcast. It helps spread the message. It helps to continue my mission, which is to spread the message of these wonderful people and amazing people who have done incredible things and who have survived it. And then also, talk about every other thing that I talk about. So thank you very much, everyone, if you're listening or watching, whatever the case is. I appreciate it. Happy holidays. Talk to you soon.
He threw some things out of the car right there. He's throwing some things out the passenger side there along the wall, the slow lane wall. 619, he's throwing dope out the window. We got bills of marijuana coming out.
619, I copy bills of marijuana coming out of the window at 2328.
Oh my
it's
God.
On a canvas.
Yeah, right? Oh my God.
Very cool.
All right. So, yeah, you know what to do. You're a seasoned professional at all of this now.
I've done a couple of them.
You've been on the big boys. I'm all the heroes that I follow as well, and super cool dudes. So,
Yeah, super lucky to have opportunities like that.
cheers, my friend.
Cheers to you.
Rick. Mr. Rick Bucher, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. How are you, sir?
I'm very good.
Good.
I am.
Good.
Back here in the valley for kind of the holiday season.
Good to see you.
You too.
Glad, dude. I've been watching your exploits on Instagram and all the fun stuff, and looks like you've been having a blast.
I left the valley in April of this year and haven't been back since. And that 7 months or so, I've just in 7 months, I think I've had the equivalent of probably 7 years of most people's adventures and activities.
I'd say a lifetime.
Travel. Could be a lifetime.
I would say a lifetime.
Sad face if that's all somebody gets to do in a lifetime.
Right.
But I think I've had multiple chances of a lifetime this summer for sure. So yeah, it's been fun.
Nice. It's so good to see you, man. I'm so happy you texted the other day, said you're coming back through. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I love sitting down, and I said I love hanging out with you. So
Yeah,
this is very cool.
it is good.
So let's talk about it first. The book.
Yeah.
Talk about the book.
Flame and Fortune, How the Fire Service Almost Killed Me by Rick Bucher. I do that every time I say that.
You got
in
it.
a reel or in a post.
You probably hate it, don't you?
I'm used to it.
It's not a thing that you're attracted to, though. You're not the media whore or anything like that.
No.
Yeah.
And you know what I hate? I feel bad about admitting this on air, but I post and ghost on social media. I put something on Instagram, it automatically cross posts over to Facebook.
Yeah.
And then I share it on LinkedIn. So that, kind of 2-step process, and then I get a free third step in there. That goes on most mornings, and I try to have enough content in the can so I can, skip a few days and still have stuff that I can post. So yeah, I hope people enjoy it, get something out of it. I try to do motivational stuff. I also do, the post I did this morning was just straight up comedy. And I'm starting to get feedback on that.
Yeah.
People are thanking me for doing those little 90-second reels. But I think it was interesting for me before I left to follow people who were traveling and see what they were doing, where they were going, and I feel like a good content creator puts out the good and the bad.
Oh, totally.
And it's always interesting to kind of see how people deal with the bad.
I saw your post about the flat tire on the side of the highway and the adversity.
Yeah. If you didn't see that one, check it out on Instagram. I had a blowout in a trailer tire behind the RV, and the nice thing was a guy actually pulled up next to me and, did the, motion that I had a flat. Well,
that's because your RV is a monster. So you probably can't even feel it when you're traveling.
No.
Right.
No, that trailer could fall off the hitch and I probably wouldn't feel it. But yeah, I pulled over and, the tread had delaminated and wrapped its way around the axle. And I thought, man, what a great chance to create some content, because here's something shitty that's happening. It's not all mountain biking and climbing and hiking and skipping through meadows.
The thing that I've noticed, though, too, in this day and age, there's a lot of people who just don't even know what to do in a situation like that.
Well, they call somebody.
They sit in their car on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to tell you, get out of your car. Get out of your car.
Right.
Get out of your car.
Get out of your car. Get away from the car.
Yes. Go to the right as far as possible. Yeah. This is the former first responders in us talking. But it's the thing that I like about watching your stuff is it's sincere. It's authentic. It's who you are. You're not pretending to be somebody. And going through the same creator process as you in my journey here, people don't want to see inauthentic. They're done with the bullshit. They're done with the grandiosing. They're done with
I hope people are wising up to it. That is one of the things that I've noticed since, coming back into the Valley here for about a week now. There's a lot of fake shit.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're comfortable with swearing.
Oh, totally.
Because we're going to let it rip.
Oh, totally.
I used to think of Scottsdale as the loft. And that stands for the land of fake tits. And I mean, it's still that. I mean, you got a lot of fake people. There are some wonderful, genuine folks who live in Scottsdale. But generally speaking, it's, I don't know, man, it's just weird. I went to Discount Tire because I had a big cut in one of my truck tires, SUV tires. And there was a line through the parking lot. There were about probably 12 cars in line. They were in line waiting to get their tire pressure checked.
Oh, yeah.
And I went in and I talked to the guy and I said, hey, what's up with that line out there for people getting their tire pressure checked? And he didn't really react. And I said something that made him comfortable. And he said, dude, I've seen people wait in that line for an hour and a half. Instead
of just getting out, learning how to use, you could Google or YouTube how to use a tire pressure monitor.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just interesting how our society has changed from one of maybe ability and resourcefulness and self-reliance to a pretty kind of weird place where people are very capable in some portions of their life.
Absolutely.
But completely inept at others. And I can't remember a time in my life where I was like that.
I am partially guilty of helping, unfortunately, perpetuate part of that with my own child. Now, I can stand here and say I use the excuse that my back injury, I have been able to work on cars, but now that my son is 16 years old and driving, I've been teaching him these sort of things. and just going through how to do this, check everything we just talked about.
Right.
But that was also the thing though too. Like I was like building skateboard ramps at 12 years old with my buddies and tearing apart bikes and just mischievous and into shit and tearing stuff down.
And being outside.
Yeah. Being very outside. I'm very fortunate where I live that there's a ton of kids, and my kids grew up outside. So that's not an issue for my children, fortunately.
I got in trouble when I was a kid for taking apart the toaster. like 6 or 7 years old, and I guess I just wanted to see how it works or what was in there. Yeah, I got in trouble for taking apart a toaster.
Our fun used to be though, like science kits and things, erector sets and Lincoln logs and stuff that you put. I know Legos are still around, but you know, like actually building and doing things, and not just staring in front of a phone. Like I'm guilty of using my phone too, like just like we all are.
Well, you can't get away. I mean, you can't get away from the fact that we have enough technology in the palm of our hand to send a rocket to the moon back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Or probably launch the shuttle.
Yep.
We'd be fools to not use that. And I think the most useful tool that I've been using over the course of the summer is an app called RV Life.
Okay.
And it includes an RV safe GPS app within it. So I enter my 67, well, it's 65 feet, guys, for all the highway patrol guys listening. 65.
64 and a half, just to be safe, to be safe.
Right.
And under 80,000 pounds.
It is under 80,000. It's 55,000.
That's a big truck, dude.
And it's 13 feet tall. So obviously that won't fit under a lot of overpasses, that, you know, on side streets and things like that, and bridges, or some small bridges are only rated for a certain amount of weight. This app lets you enter your destination, and it will give you an RV safe route for your rig.
Nice.
And there have been several times where I entered something when I was in a city, and just for the heck of it, I entered it in Google Maps also, and it was a different route. So there were, you know, if I had used Google Maps for my big rig, I would have pulled up in front of a bridge or overpass and been like, oh shit, now I got to back up. And
have you seen that bridge that just scalps trucks? I forget, it's back east somewhere. There's videos all over the place, and there's like ginormous signs that say how big it is, and people just don't give a shit. They just barrel through at 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And that would be an expensive day for you if that happened.
Yeah, that would be big. That'd be really big. Three AC heat pumps up there, and 1,300 watts of solar panels. That would be ugly.
So what have you been doing since we last spoke? You've been on your whirlwind tour.
Yeah.
Cross country trek.
Yep.
Hanging out with Andy Stump and Mike Glover and all those guys.
My plan was to start out with a Midwest book tour, which I did. I headed east over into Texas, visited a sister and brother from Katy, Texas, Pete and Kath. Hey, guys. And then worked my way north, and that was kind of when the work started. Did a presentation at a ranch, at the Diamond Horseshoe Ranch in Camden Point, Missouri, which was really cool because that event brought together a representative from most of the surrounding volunteer fire departments, but also from Kansas City. The medical director from Kansas City Fire and her assistant were there. There's kind of multiple people in the community, and I sat down in a rocking chair on a porch in front of a wooden shack, and the whole group we arranged all their chairs into kind of a semicircle and had a little outdoor amphitheater kind of thing.
Has that, excuse me, have they ever had any sort of training regarding any of that prior to you pulling up there?
The word training is interesting because I hear that once in a while. Like if I'm booking, if I have something booked and then the organizer reaches back out to me, sometimes they'll say, hey, I need to talk about the upcoming training or the training you're gonna do. I don't really think of myself as training so much as sharing my story, which is one of trauma and recovery and hope, but then also presenting resources that are available to the audience, which if I do a live gig, I like to arrive a day or two in advance and kind of do recon and research and dance with the one that brought me.
Yeah.
See what they want out of this. Talk specifically about who's in the audience, because I don't like to speak above or below people. And in some cases, when I have a mixed audience, like civilians, military, and first responders, I have to speak in broad terms, and I can't use jargon and technical things from the fire service that nobody's going to understand. But if I'm standing in the bay in a volunteer fire department with 12 or 15 people that are there on a Tuesday night to do their, monthly drill, I can relate to most firefighters within about a minute.
Oh, sure. It's the same. You could relate to a firefighter in another country. You could relate to a firefighter and a first responder all the way around the world.
Yeah. I think you're right.
It's the same sort of thing, no matter what. We could even talk about, the ones that are bad at the moment, their people still have firefighters and all that.
Yeah.
They're still dealing with human trauma.
Well, and here's the other half of that is in the fire departments that I've visited so far, the same characters are present in all of them. There's the brand new guy that doesn't know shit. There's the guy with 5 to 7 years on who thinks he knows everything. And then you've got the salty dog that's overseeing the whole circus. It's the same shit somewhere else.
Yes.
But it's the same good stuff also. Yeah. But what I mean by the same shit everywhere is that there exists a stigma around mental health and stepping forward for help everywhere. And the excuses that people use for not doing so are the same everywhere. Mm-hmm. And they're those, to some extent, the consequences of stepping forward affect the decision to step forward and the whole attitude on both sides, whether it's somebody needing help or not.
Yep.
Just the view and the culture of what that means is distorted.
I hate that I have to talk about myself so much on here, but this is exactly what my entire purpose has been, is to share these stories, to break the stigma, just in the same thing that you're doing, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And talking about it. And again, it's the same story over and over and over again. I was going to ask you, are you familiar with some other people who are doing the exact... My whole big thing is that we got all these people out here doing the same thing. So are you familiar with some of the other ones who are doing this, like Travis Howes from My Arena?
Yes.
The former Mesa PD guy.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Travis Howes. And then there's the other one, Travis Gribble.
Travis Gribble.
Yeah, they're both named Travis.
Arena.
Okay.
Yeah. Travis Gribble is My Arena.
Yes, Travis Gribble is My Arena. I've had communication with him, and he's former Mesa.
Yeah, and he and I actually had the same therapist here in the Valley.
Yes.
So,
and I'm connected his way because with some other people that are working with the organization and all that and trying to do some stuff. Yeah, so like I said, I can't say names. But it's hearing your story, and I haven't seen your actual presentation yet. Yours, but it's like there's all these people that are trying to do the same thing just to break the damn stigma.
Yeah.
Just to reach out and get to these new people and get to the crusty old guys that, who are hitting the bottle every single night.
Or something.
Yeah. No, and it just...
Or taking part in any of the unhealthy coping mechanisms that first responders use. Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I attempted to order your book on Spotify just the other day, and it's given me some issue. I can't download it from the app or whatever, no big deal. Okay. But I was listening to the little excerpts from it, and one of the things that you had said in this particular excerpt was basically about the cost and the benefit, and was it worth the cost and all that stuff. And my question to you is this, is that now, looking back from now to where you were and the mission that you're on now, are you tired of it all yet? Are you still feeling that energy to continue forward, that mission and that drive?
I do nothing but get more motivated to do this. The more work that I do at it, the more motivated I am to continue.
Yeah.
And I think that the key to that is the feeling that I get after I set a microphone down or walk out of an interview and
Right.
whatever I've done. When I know that it's had an impact on somebody that listened, that makes me keep doing it. Just like the social media stuff, people like it. Sorry, but people respond to it, and people send me messages, of encouragement or thanks. So that's when that's some of the stuff that motivates me to keep doing that for sure.
Good. And it's the sort of thing where I don't want people who were in our shoes to fall into the same cracks that we did and go down the same roads.
Yeah, and going back one question, I think there is one thing that I get tired of, and that is seeing the same fucking problems in fire departments, PD, even in the military talks that I've done. Seeing the same problems over and over again. That's kind of what I get tired of. But at the same time, if you've been a first responder for say 10 years in a reasonably busy location, after a while you start to have a kind of a procedure, like an automatic kind of thing that you do for every situation. And that's kind of the same sort of a thing that I see is, okay, I see this problem. This is what automatically will fix that. Yeah.
Well, that's very logical. And that's also very first responder. Yeah. You've prepared for this.
Solving.
Yeah, 100%. First responders are, and it doesn't matter what version of first responder. It doesn't matter fire, EMS, law enforcement. I always include level 1 trauma, hospital staff. Sure. I 100% include them in the first response. And now a lot of the fire services are actually incorporating nurses and PAs on ambulances.
Yeah.
So I absolutely include all of them. But here's the problem. We got to go fix the problem.
Right.
And we're going to solve everything.
And we have SOPs, standard operating procedures, all these policies and things that are presented as first responders, but you can't write policies for everything.
No.
So that's where the art of it, whether it's law enforcement or first responder, fire, that's where the art comes in. So I may know a standard time to have a crew pull a hose or hook up to a hydrant or raise a ladder. It's being on a scene and looking at the hose going through the front door, make a left, then go up the stairs, and then on the second floor, go all the way to the right. I look at that hose lay and realize that that's greater than 200 feet from this truck, and that's not going to work. That's not covered in writing somewhere.
Experience.
Yeah. So the mental health portion of it has policies and procedures associated with it, but one size does not fit all, or one all does not fit all sizes, because of the radically different size of sheriff's departments, PD departments, and fire departments. I mean, the different models are unreal. Everything from volunteers to a big city.
And it all comes down to funding.
It does come down to funding, but I think that if that's the hurdle, and when I speak, I tend to generally have two separate audiences within the let's just call them all firefighters within the firefighter arena. Those are members of large departments who have a robust mental health system, but the firefighters don't use it.
Right.
For whatever reason. But probably the most common is because they don't want to get taken off the truck and put on light duty. I wouldn't want that either. That's one end of the spectrum. The other is the volunteer department that is still, by the way, running calls that are as traumatic as any.
1,000,000%.
Because they're running them on people they know.
Yeah.
Because they protect the city in which or town in which they live. So yeah, they're the ones that are exposed to the same type of trauma as anybody else. But it's a lot worse when you're doing chest compressions on somebody you know,
Yeah.
or you knew right where that person's living room was, despite the fact that their house was on fire and it was, everything was obscured by smoke.
You've probably been in that living room. You're probably friends with.
So when that happens, within a volunteer fire department, that's some traumatic shit for sure. So those are the two audiences.
Okay. And they probably have no resources.
That's the key, is big department getting people to use the resources. Small department, my audience isn't necessarily the firefighters. It's the fire board, the fire commissioner, the mayor, whoever it is that holds the purse strings that can provide
Gotcha.
Resources. Yeah.
I think a big component of all of this, though, too, is the spouses.
Yeah, and that in your other interview, it's interesting to hear a first responder spouse.
Yeah.
And kind of see that side of it that I, honestly never really seriously considered in the past.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
We were out there being heroes.
Yeah.
We were out there doing the job and saving people, but not saving our own houses and our own homes and our own heads.
Somebody I was just talking to asked me if I thought that my PTSD situation, my signs, symptoms, the outcome, the whole thing would have been different had I went through 2 marriages and 1 long-term relationship while I was on the job. If any of those ladies had provided specific support and been more understanding about what I was going through, if that would have changed things for me. And that was a really good question. I had to think about it for a minute. But I think that there's no replacement for actual therapy.
Agreed.
With a professional therapist, whether it's therapy with a psychologist or therapy and prescription from a psychiatrist. That's the difference, everybody, between a psychologist and a psychiatrist.
One can write you drugs.
Right. I think that having the spouse have an understanding of PTSD signs and symptoms, and the support of the spouse's therapist.
Yeah.
Maybe even contact with them. I mean, there's HIPAA stuff that would be an issue there, but I think for a therapist to know that their patient's spouse is supportive and understanding, that would have changed things for me.
I think a lot of it also has to do with age, maturity. It has to do with...
I was 20 years old when I started.
I was 25 and fresh out of the military and thought I was God.
Right.
And my ex at the time was right around the same age. So she was doing her thing as well with her career path as well. Mm-hmm. And looking back, it's like, no, I didn't pay any attention to what she was doing because I was so cool out there, man. Listen to my stories. Listen to me. This is what I did.
Right.
You know, and it's just the exciting part of the job that gets the best of you.
It winds up being an evolution throughout somebody's career. And at first you want the calls, you want the action,
Right.
you want the experience, but at what cost?
Right.
And to your point with the audiobook, which is available on, I believe, 43 different platforms
Nice.
worldwide at this point. So
And you
anywhere
did the
you get an
narration.
audiobook. I did, man. I'm a do-it-yourselfer.
Good.
And have been most of my life. But I recorded it in the backcountry on a hilltop looking over a lake
Nice.
in northeast Idaho. It was about a 10 or 12 day recording project, and then it took about maybe a week in post-production and editing. But
Did you do all the editing and post-production and all that?
I learned how to use GarageBand. Did some research on what settings to use and a little bit about the equipment, and freaking went for it.
Awesome.
And Audible, they kind of warn you ahead of time because I self-published all this. So they warn you ahead of time when you upload all of your audio files that Audible could take 30 to 60 days to publish your audio, because they have to review everything and they're very particular. And I'd read online that some people had run into issues with their levels or the sound quality.
Understood.
or zero. And so I uploaded everything, and I didn't, I truly expected Audible to reach out and say, hey, chapter 7 is too loud, or chapter 20 is inaudible. It was up within a week of the others. So I might have gotten a little bit lucky, but sometimes luck's enough.
But you speak clearly, you're articulate, so that helps. Your
was
volume's
stuff that,
good.
There were some sentences that were 5 takes.
Really?
In the book, where I either stumbled, or my tone wasn't what I wanted it to be, or I wasn't getting across the emotion that I was feeling in the writing. And I've had a few people tell me that they don't think anybody other than me could read that book and make it sound right.
What you just said was the point, is a really neat point. You couldn't get your emotion that you were feeling in the writing across the first take, so it took you a couple takes. So that right there is kind of the missing component for all of these people who have other people read their stuff. It's not their stuff. This is yours. These are your stories. This is it's your baby.
Yeah, yeah. And there were chapters that were emotionally hard to read. I actually got to a couple points in the book where, my voice was cracking. I was having a hard time reading my own story. I left it in.
I like it
because I figured, you know what, the listener is probably already crying at this point, so let's cry together.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Now, and I feel like an asshole for having not read or listened to the book yet, but
no, it's not. I mean, it's only been out. It came out November 1st, so it hasn't been out very long.
Gotcha.
But I've gotten some good feedback. It seems like a couple of the chapters might have been cut off by the publisher, so I need to.
Interesting.
I'm going to try and review that later today and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, proud to have it out there. Great to share the story.
It's an amazing accomplishment. All of your life has been a pretty amazing accomplishment. Yeah. And the sort of thing that I think about is the fact of, talking about what if our previous spouses would have had a better understanding, interjected more in a way that wasn't coming across as just, nagging, but actually had, that's kind of a thing. So.
Oh, wow. This is a coincidence. While I was recording in Idaho, I did a social media series on how to live with us.
Okay. Very nice.
This is a weird coincidence. I did a week-long series about, I called them pro tips for dealing with a partner or a spouse who's in the first responder arena. And I got some good views and some good feedback, and I just keep stuff to 90 seconds.
Yeah,
So it'll fit on all the platforms. And I think that spouses and partners are being brought into the fire family, maybe the same or better as they ever were in the past. But the idea of mental health and wellness is no longer a mystery to anybody.
It shouldn't be.
Who's coming in
right
at this point.
And the thing is, there's so many points and all this good stuff. It's just like I need to like list. No first responder wants to be taken off of that truck, taken out of that car, having their gun taken away. But my question to you is, do you feel as though sometimes that person is in enough crisis that they absolutely need to be taken off of that truck and helped?
Totally.
So how can we get through to everybody to understand that, like, you know, we need to take the stigma away and not emasculate people, or, you know, not demoralize them and, you know, dehumanize them. And then also so that they allow for this to happen. Like and it's just the acceptance of, I need to go away. I need to be separated. I need this break, and change their mentality as well.
Here's one of the biggest barriers. When you're out on patrol, you're alone.
Yep.
In with the PD community, unless something big happens and multiple units respond, and then you get a little fellowship while you're there at the scene. Okay. But for the most part, you're kind of alone. In the fire department, you're never alone. You always, I mean, even if you're on an ambulance, you got one partner. But if you're on a fire truck, you have a minimum of 2, but probably 3 in a big city. So firefighters aren't alone, but they feel alone.
Yeah.
Because let's say somebody's suffering PTSD, anxiety, and depression on that truck. 99% of the time, the other people on the truck were exposed to the exact same traumas. Now, they may not have all been a medic or a company officer, but the trauma is still there. It just reaches out and touches some of us in a different way for different reasons. But when somebody is riding around on the truck and they're suffering, they always feel alone. And I've had so many people reach out to me and thank me for telling my story, but also right after thanking me in the email or the voicemail, they say, I don't feel alone now. I don't feel like I'm the only one.
And they probably have a significant other as well.
Yeah. Who could be supportive.
Yeah.
Here's a rundown of my pro tip ideas right now for spouses and partners. Number 1, you've got to give the other person some grace. Despite the fact that you're used to them going off and fighting fire or chasing bad guys for the last decade, and that looks normal to you, the job isn't normal.
It's not.
We're not going to an office job, sitting in a chair. We're not working in a warehouse. We're not driving an Uber. It's different.
Yeah.
We're performing emergency services. So give your partner some grace. Don't judge them in a bunch of different ways. So here's the first one with regard to, let's say, department size. And she knows that you only pull over one person a shift, or you only run one EMS call a week. She may, or he may think that you don't do anything at work.
Right.
That's not the point. Call volume isn't the point. There are so many other effects. Being away from home, being up at night, just job pressure, maintaining a paramedic cert, I think that regardless of how busy your agency is, there are still challenges that the spouse needs to understand.
Oh, sure.
So don't judge based on call volume. Don't measure. This isn't a measuring contest.
Right.
Be supportive, and that's such a generality. Be supportive.
Right.
Well, how? You need to figure out what your partner, significant other needs from you. And you're only going to find that out if you ask. A buddy of mine who's actually named Bobby McGee told me that from the boardroom to the bedroom, you're never going to get what you don't ask for.
Amen.
So if you want support, you've got to ask for it. And you've also got to know what you need for support and what that looks like for you. So a good open dialogue between people is important. That communication is important. When you come home from shift and you immediately start putting the dishes in the dishwasher, or you immediately start vacuuming or something. That's very common for first responders when they get off shift. Just a partner seeing that and understanding, okay, they're doing this and this behavior is happening. Something happened at work. I wonder what's going on. So another pro tip: how to approach or how to start that conversation.
Yeah.
Because hey, how was work? It was quiet. 2 calls. That's what the report sounds like.
Right.
When you get off shift after a decade, and you're tired of here's what the 2 calls were. A house fire with somebody trapped, and you pulled them out, transported them down to the burn center, and they ceased resuscitation and took them off event 3 hours later. That was the first call.
Right.
And then the second call was for a friend of yours who wrecked his car 3 blocks away from his house and was trapped. And you wound up treating him and transporting him to the hospital. Those were the 2 calls.
Right.
But because the first responder is not in a mood to elaborate on what happened, but also doesn't, but also feels like they need to protect their partner from exposure to that trauma.
Right.
Now, here's the deal. I can spin a yarn. I can tell a good story. No matter how much detail I go into telling a story to somebody about trauma, they're never going to have the same experience as I did experiencing the trauma firsthand. It doesn't work that way. That's not possible. Telling somebody in graphic detail what happened is not going to make them feel the same way that you do about it. So open dialogue and honesty is what's needed from the responder side of it. And then let's give you one more. What do we got for a spouse or a partner? Know and understand the signs and symptoms of PTSD. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Just know what those things are. And then if you're thinking about your spouse or partner in those terms and looking at the signs, be honest with yourself. And don't be tricked by, oh, you know what? He likes to golf a lot. But does he golf with other people, or is he by himself? No, he's by himself. Okay. He's isolating himself socially.
That's a clue.
So what looked like, oh, he's a great golfer, he's really passionate about that. Be honest and take a step back and go, wait a minute, it could be this.
Yep.
So just have your eyes and ears open and communicate and speak and don't stop. Don't let 10 years or 20 years of service dull that relationship
Yeah.
with your partner.
Those are excellent tips.
Thanks.
Deep thoughts.
Yes.
But these are things that could save marriages. These are things that could save
Dude, this is stuff
relationships.
that could save lives.
Yeah.
Because when a first responder experiences all the trauma that they have at work, and then they come home and they experience additional trauma, now you've got a powder keg that has this tag on it.
Yep.
I am not happy at work, and I'm not happy at home.
Yep. They don't see any way out.
Right. And given the right circumstances, the right shift the night before, the right person, that can end up being really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. It's simple, but it's not easy. Just talk. Just communicate.
Yeah.
The things that I look back on were the things that I thought were really, really cool in the moment, the fun stuff.
Yeah.
That was the most traumatic shit.
Right.
Other than the pursuits. So that's the side that I
cool.
had. Yeah. that other than the pursuits.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was oftentimes the things that were the most traumatic were the most fun because it elicited the most amount of adrenaline.
Yeah.
And then just like we talked about before, your baseline for adrenaline was here. Well, now your baseline's here, and now it's here, and soon nothing does it.
Right.
There is no more excitement. There is no thrill.
Yeah. And in the adventure sports that I do, I've found that I need to do those just to feel normal.
Right. That's your baseline.
That brings, my adrenal glands are so smoked from keeping me alive a lot of times. But yeah, it takes some excitement in my life to make me feel normal. But I'm finding it in a greater variety of different ways than I used to. There was a time when only, yeah. And in the adventure sports that I do, I've found that I need to do those just to feel normal.
Right. That's your baseline.
That brings, my adrenal glands are so smoked from keeping me alive a lot of times. But yeah, it takes some excitement in my life to make me feel normal. But I'm finding it in a greater variety of different ways than I used to. There was a time when only motorcycle racing or track days was getting it. That was the only thing that got me excited enough to feel normal. And that was a period of probably 5 or 6 years there. Or bicycle racing.
And that's some high level adrenaline shit.
It is.
That's some when you're doing 150, 160, 170 miles an hour, that's pretty damn exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. But the funny thing about that I'm sure some of the listeners can relate to is that when you're in the zone with something like that, I mean, some of my fastest laps on the track, like qualifying laps, I was thinking about what I was going to have for dinner.
Right.
Or I was thinking about the drive home or whatever.
You were just in that workflow, in that flow state.
Yeah. I had reached unconscious competence.
I like that.
Yeah. Do you know the steps?
No.
The first is unconscious incompetence. So you don't know shit, but you also don't even know that you don't know shit.
Gotcha.
Then there's conscious incompetence, where you're looking at something and you realize, okay, there's a lot going on there that I don't know about. That's conscious incompetence.
You're aware.
Yeah. Then comes competence. And the first of the two is conscious competence. So you have gotten to the point where you can play a guitar riff or play a song all the way through, but you need the music in front of you, or you really need to think about what you're doing. And then the final phase is unconscious competence, where you can sing and play guitar
Gotcha.
to, for that song without really thinking about it.
You're just doing it.
Yeah. And they, Freakonomics, they bring up the 10,000 hours, that it takes to master something. And that's probably true for me. I mean, I do actually have things in my life that I've done in excess of 10,000 hours. And I think that transition from conscious to unconscious competence gets really blurry. When that happens, I don't think I really know it. I don't really recognize that right away.
Do you think it's good or bad?
Well, I think for a first responder, that transition is probably the time where we're at greatest risk to get really jaded.
I think that would be the biggest factor for burnout as well.
Yeah. And I think that, remember the movie scene in The Matrix where Neo has one hand on his hip and he's fighting the agents with the other hand, and it's just, it's very blasé, like, okay, yeah, you're doing these incredible things with one hand on your hip. That happens in fire, PD, military, motorcycle racing, bicycle racing, rock climbing, backpacking, kayaking, skiing, all this shit, right? That happens in recreation, and I think you kind of start to take what you're doing for granted. Oh, I can always ski.
Right.
No, you can't always ski. Or I can always run whitewater. No, you can't either, whether it's the water's not flowing or you're not going for whatever reason. No, this isn't permanent. I think for a first responder, that jaded, that potential to become complacent.
Yeah, complacency kills.
When that transition happens. I think it's also when you start to become more vulnerable to trauma. So we agree that the first years of our careers were fun and kick ass and crazy
100%.
and we experienced all this traumatic shit that was fun. At some point it transitions and it's not fun anymore. Right. And on a small scale, that's Engine 602's fifth call after midnight, and the sun ain't even close to coming up in downtown Scottsdale. That's where you're getting to that final bench press rep, and you're just struggling. You're not sure that you're going to be able to complete this. And if you don't have a spotter, then you start to think, I'm going to drop this thing on me, or how am I going to tip it and, get a 45 to fall off on each side and then push it. Mentally, that happens too. Yeah. You just become so overwhelmed at some point that you get used to being overwhelmed.
Your bottom just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
What are some good things to help combat that? What are some good steps to keep you from reaching that point?
Surrounding yourself with supportive people is a great start for that. And I don't mean other cops or other firefighters. You need somebody out of your community.
I agree. I'm 100%.
That's vitally important. You definitely, your vibe attracts your tribe. So you're gonna wind up hanging out with a certain type of person. If you're a skateboarder with SO, you're going to hang out with skateboarders. Right. If you are a rock climber with Scottsdale Fire, you're going to hang out with rock climbers. Whatever it is, it's just got to be outside of the organization, number one, and outside of the trade. So that's healthy in that first responders can kind of keep in mind that there is life outside of work.
Oh man, there's so much life outside of work.
Yeah, and if you're hanging out with people from work, what do you talk about?
Work. about
it's inevitable.
that 963 rollover and this and that, and you're talking codes,
Right.
and your spouse is like, what are these idiots talking about?
Yeah.
Like, all they do is talk in codes and talk about, oh yeah, the dead body hanging out of the blah blah blah.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, no, this is not healthy.
No.
It's
Talking
dark.
about it is.
Yes,
But
yes.
if you're only surrounded with people from your department or from even from your trade, that's kind of a ticket to problems. So you got to have people outside.
That's not to take away from get-togethers and stuff like that. Like, you got to have the camaraderie and the team building.
And that's just straight up fellowship.
Yes.
You really need that.
Yes. And that's for the trust of on the job and trusting each other. You got each other's back and all that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, no, outside of the job, your hobbies.
And let's take a side trip down that thing with the brotherhood and the trust and camaraderie and community. I think it would go a long way for either side, PD or fire, when we respond to a call with each other. Look at the cop or at the fire captain and say, hey, you want to get some coffee after this? Or whatever. And after the call is done, meet for coffee, or hey, come by the station for a cup of coffee, whatever.
Yeah.
Interact with each other, because that's more people that you can trust on a scene.
Amen.
And I couldn't tell you how many times there was a single PD officer, but there were 4 of us from the fire truck, and somebody got rowdy. And we lended a hand. So yeah, communicate within. Don't avoid your own tribe off duty, but by all means add in some outside influence. On top of that, I would say that young first responders need to understand their mental health resources and not feel any trepidation or consequence for stepping forward and using those resources. So I think that it's like a tune-up. You keep a car running well, and you're not going to have as many problems as if you don't do that. So it's perfectly fine for a new first responder in their first year of service to establish a relationship with a counselor.
Yeah, 100%.
Super important. And if you go in just armed with those things from the beginning, you're really setting yourself up for success.
If you could find a culturally appropriate, psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, whatever level that understands, so you don't have to re-explain all the stuff and establish that rapport early. The thing I will say this is that when I had gone to treatment in the past for talk therapy, I wasn't talking about the root causes of my trauma. I was talking about the symptoms of it being the shitty home life, the drinking too much and all that. I wasn't talking about the original thing.
Right.
Whereas if I would have had that original conversation about, that bothered me.
Right.
It wouldn't have spiraled.
No, and I think anybody that's gotten into any kind of a serious mental health situation as a first responder, they would agree with that there just wasn't. There were probably multiple things. There were kind of multiple failures involved in something like that.
100%. And I commend the new generation coming up.
I commend the generation coming up, but I don't condemn the most senior generation up in senior staff. Except if they're not providing resources when they could be,
right,
or if they're not supportive of their staff that step forward to use those things, that's when I would condemn those acts.
It should be
on behalf of senior staff. And here's why that happens around the country. Your fire chief hasn't been on for 10 years. Your fire chief's been on for 20, maybe 30 years. And they come from that generation. I started in 1993, so they started about then, and now they're the chief. When I started, there was no help. There was zero support, and the culture was so messed up that, it was suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah.
Why are you such a pussy? This didn't bother any of the rest of us. That mindset, unfortunately, is present in certain fire and police chiefs today. Now, guess what? That problem is going to solve itself when these fuckers retire.
Amen.
Bye.
Yep.
But there's going to be a gap in time between when that happens and the new generation coming in.
Yeah, 10 years.
And now, we don't have time to wait for that problem to solve itself, or we don't have time to wait for that problem to retire. We need to grow a pair.
Yep.
If we're in a department that is not providing the amount of support that it could be, we need to do something about it.
What was it? San Fernando Valley, just this past week, had 4 officer deaths in 1 week. 2 of them were by suicide. And it's just, and again, I just happen to stay up on the law enforcement stuff more, and, it's just an epidemic everywhere. And it's the sort of thing where we have these in our hands and all the resources in the world in our hands, but if we're not using it properly, there is BetterHelp. I know that's an online therapy that's, you could use that completely. But the other part is that having enough trust with your fellow teammates to also open up those conversations,
right?
And have that. And the fire department does have the benefit where you guys do roast marshmallows and sing Kumbaya and drink hot chocolate back at the fire station. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and we play a lot of checkers.
Yes.
And we do a chili cook-off every shift. I mean, sometimes we just have fucking smiling contests, in the middle of the day. Okay, you guys ready? No.
Totally, yes. But they do have the added benefit of being able to actually come back. But the problem is the conversations need to be had.
For sure.
Not just, you good? Yeah, I'm good.
The conversations need to be had, and they need to be led by the senior personnel on the truck or in the battalion or on the squad. The people, we're really good about mentoring people on clearing a room.
Yep.
Or a felony stop.
Yep.
Or pulling hose, or, driving a truck, whatever it is. We're really good at mentoring with that, but we're not good at mentoring for mental health. Maybe that's a new thing. I'm going to patent that. Don't steal it. 3P. Yeah. If we can normalize stepping forward for help, I think it'll go a long way. And that comes from the senior personnel saying that it's okay to do so.
100%.
And admitting that they have been working on it, because it's 2023. There's no mystery.
Right.
This is a thing.
Right.
And going and getting help for your mental health is a sign of strength now.
Amen.
And I'll prove it. If it wasn't difficult, there wouldn't be a stigma surrounding it, because people are too afraid to step forward. So It is hard. But just like starting a difficult conversation, once you start it, you will feel better. Things will improve.
Yes.
It's just, it's getting that first domino to fall with the 15-year guy in the department that a lot of people look up to, who may be a trainer and have taught half of the people in the department to do what they're doing. For that person to step forward and be okay with talking about stepping forward and standing up. That's what it takes. Because when that happens with the 15-year guy, the 15-week guy will follow that example. Go up the chain. When the fire chief provides complete and total support for their firefighter, and wrestles and fights for their mental health care with the city council, the department's going to be in a better spot.
Which is going to lead to better services for its citizens.
I defy anybody to explain to me what it's not going to help.
Right. It's going to lower post-retirement costs for care and for that.
Yeah.
It's going to save taxpayers money. It's going to have better outcomes for its citizens.
Yeah. And that first hurdle is finances.
Yeah.
That's what the city, the fire board, the county, or whoever it is, that has the purse. No, we can't afford that.
We got no problem spending billions on wars right now, but
yeah,
let's not talk about mental health.
If you don't have the funds to provide some visits as part of an EAP program or something, whatever, pick it. If you don't have the funds for that, what makes you think you have the funds to pay out for for catastrophic loss? Yeah. Somebody's annual salary, you pay that benefit. You pay, if somebody files suit, you might be paying a lot more than that person's annual salary. But then the cost of losing a member to suicide, what does that cost you? So now, do you have money?
You got to find it somewhere.
What do you have money for?
Yep.
Because you're gonna pay us now, or you're gonna pay us later. That's the bottom line.
We need first responders that are mentally fit and prepared, and and it's the sort of thing where things need to be first responders are great at compartmentalizing. So let's get through this shift, and then let's decompress in the appropriate ways, and let's deal with it, and not some little feel-good session in some sort of a critical incident stress management decompression with somebody who you've never met, somebody you don't know. You don't know these people that are on this CISM. I don't know what they call it now, but it's like who the fuck are these people?
Let's talk about that, because that's
where are they coming from?
There are all these different resources that are available to first responding departments. In the past, CISM was critical incident stress management, and that was a program that was put in the late 90s, I guess, maybe mid to late 90s. And it was peer-based.
Yep.
So that was popular with departments who couldn't bring a staff member like a psychiatrist or a psychologist on full-time or even part-time. This is staffed by our firefighters. Yeah, great. So they passed the money hurdle,
right,
with the exception of the upfront cost of training, but
which is fairly minimal. I'm sure there's grants out there.
I think initially it was, and then it changed and it got better over the course of years that CISM was actually happening. But I think the biggest gap that I remember with CISM exists between that and the current peer support programs. And that's these sit downs after a call around a table with the crew where you talk about what happened, focus on the good, try to avoid the bad, maybe talk a little bit about how we feel or what the call meant to us. What I remember with CISM was the CISM counselors would tell us, okay, yeah, just you did a good job tomorrow, do some self-care, go, do something you really enjoy doing, spend time with people, and get back to me if you have any issues. That was it. What has to happen now with peer support after that same meeting in the station after the call? The battalion chief, who is hopefully there anytime a peer support event happens.
Agreed.
I think that's important for somebody in a white shirt in terms of the fire department show up and support their people, because we need that. That BC needs to do something like this. I'm really proud of you guys. I'm proud to be working with you. And that's working with you, not I'm proud that you're working for me.
Right. Servant leadership.
Right. That is that battalion chief telling them that he cares about them and that he fully supports their mental health and wellness, and admits that that call would have shaken them up also. And if they're going in for a mental health visit, feel free to share that. Because now the fire captain, company officer, the firefighter, the engineer, they see that in their leadership and they'll follow.
Yeah.
That's a key, I think, is it is so easy to lead.
This is an opportunity to step up and be a leader.
Yeah.
Step up and be that first one.
It's so easy to do. It just really is. Leading people should not be a mystery.
It's not.
But it's the baggage that every leader brings with them. And by that, I mean motivation to promote to a position higher than even the one that they're in, right, that they've just gotten into.
Yeah.
Motivation to prove themselves to everybody around them, but not admit that who they're really proving things to is themselves.
Right.
Because the new BC just, I hope I can run my battalion, or the new assistant chief. I hope I can run this division.
Right.
There's baggage there with people trying to prove themselves to themselves.
Instead of just asking for help.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, I'm really new at this and I don't know what the F I'm doing.
Yeah.
Some leadership and some mentoring.
Yeah.
There needs to be mentorship programs.
So the battalion chief needs to get all that across to the crew. And then whoever's leading the peer support meeting needs to say, all right, guys, I fully expect you to follow up with your mental health care professional and really be cognizant about a month, maybe 3 weeks from now, about how you're feeling. Because that, more often than not, is when some traumatic stuff and some signs and symptoms of PTSD will start to present themselves. It's not the call you just ran. Like if you're having PTSD signs and symptoms, more often than not, it's not the call that you just ran that was traumatic. It was the one 3 or 4 weeks ago that sets the stage for that reaction.
And nobody ever explains any of that. They don't explain the emotions. They don't explain the actions behind the emotions. Or, like, why is he self-isolating? Why is he doing this? Like, these are all things that are never, ever explained.
Right.
When I had the spouse on talking about the fact that, again, okay, so at the end of the academy, you have one couple hour session to talk about it's going to be hard and tough and they'll need your support. Have a nice day. Bye.
Exactly.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, this is so much more complicated than that.
Right.
And, and the whole, they should have known what they were signing up for. Who the fuck teaches this?
Did you know when you signed up?
Right?
Because no, you didn't.
Nobody knew.
Yeah.
Nobody understood.
We all thought we knew.
Right.
And to some extent we were right about what we thought, but it was about the things that we didn't think of or that we didn't anticipate. That's the stuff that gets you.
Yeah. The other strange thing for me is not understanding, why did this bother me, but that didn't? That was significantly worse.
Yeah.
But this bothered me. Some things that like I can remember just in reflection and be like, no, okay, that was terrible. And that's it. But then there's other things it's like, why the fuck is that sticking around?
I think that our personal upbringing, our prior life experiences, our morals and values, our spiritual beliefs, our social interactions, all that stuff frames how you react to trauma.
Yeah.
And what is traumatic for you. Like for me, I think I probably said it, but I had a hard time with Alzheimer's calls because my mom died secondary to Alzheimer's. And she had that for the last 6 years of her life. And, I was adopted into the family, but when I watched that progression in her, it was heartbreaking.
I'm sure.
And there wasn't the thought, well, if she has it, I could have it when I am her age, that, any of that. It was just, this was her, and she was going through Alzheimer's, and I saw the progression. It's hard to watch, because it starts out with her making a banana cream pie for my birthday instead of a coconut cream pie, which she made for decades in the past. That was the first sign with her. And then, it progressed to, she was like telling the same story over and over again, or asking the same questions over and over again. But so if you work in the same area, you run on the same patients month after month, year after year, and you see that progression in them. Now, the other side of that was, I was the Alzheimer's master. I knew exactly how to, I could walk in, recognize it, and then understand how to treat that patient. Because at some point, that Alzheimer's patient cannot tell you what is wrong with them. And that's the point where you have to switch gears and actually treat them as a pediatric patient who can't describe what they're feeling. Right. But you look at them like they have a grimace, or whatever it is. You look at what they're showing you instead of listening to what they tell you. But that was traumatic for me.
Not in the moment, though. I mean, it probably was at the moment, but you were hiding it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I let that mastery of that call help my crew, but more than anything, get me through it. I knew I was okay. I know I'm not going to fail on this call, right? And it's important. So Alzheimer's is one of them. Opiate overdoses, those are hard too. These are the worst things for most people, kids.
Yeah.
Pediatric code, peds drowning, peds trauma, any of that. I don't have any kids, so that's, I can detach from that.
Yeah.
We all have, we've all got a call. We've got a call type that affects us in a different way.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I think your life experiences are what shape that vulnerability.
I think the more traumatic you had, you're just better at suppressing it and hiding it. But that's when it comes out later and worse and stronger.
Yeah, because you're basically doing sets and reps of masking.
Yeah.
And then you wind up with a layer of masking tape that's this thick, and yeah, it's a problem.
I love talking to you, but God, it's just such heavy, dark shit. It sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, we cover a lot of heavy shit. I've gotten so used to talking about it. That was kind of it's almost normal. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of my question about earlier, is that, we can look back and say, had our previous spouses, whatever, but then the other part is that your mission you would be on this mission now. And it's the sort of thing where I do believe in a higher power. I'm a non-denominational Christian. I believe that we all have a path, and I believe that you're doing your thing for a reason. And unfortunately, you had to be the sacrifice to be able to bounce back, to be able to tell the story. Because, Rick, nobody's taken it to the level you did.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everybody, you kind of got the crown, unfortunately, on that.
I go big.
You go big. You go big.
And if you guys are not familiar with the story, you can find it out there. I think that, I've gone big with everything in my life, really. And I'm going big with appearing and telling my story and advocating and working to push first responder and mental health and military mental health and wellness forward. So
who's been the best, or who's been the most receptive, and who's been the least receptive?
This is going to freak you out. Most receptive has been pretty much everyone.
Okay.
Least receptive has been my own department.
Interesting. Still to this day.
Yeah. I reached out to some labor leadership about 6 or 8 weeks ago for a question about something. Got a response, but it was a "I'll call you later" response, and that never happened. I've sent text messages and left voicemails with people. I've been ghosted, man.
You know, these are moments when I wish that the leadership of departments such as your previous one and all that would take a step back and say, instead of shunning you, instead of ghosting you, saying, God damn, we fucked up. Let's fix this shit. Let's fucking hire Rick to figure this shit out. You know what I'm saying? And embrace it, and embrace the culture, and embrace somebody who's been through it. I just don't comprehend.
Here's the thing, dude. When I show up and I speak somewhere, I did retire with a disability, but my goal and my message and what I present is not how to fucking retire with a disability.
Right.
I don't think that everybody needs to be a broken toy and medical out. I love sitting here with you, but I'd rather be flying around in a helicopter right now rescuing people.
I get it.
If I could still do it, I would be doing that. But it literally almost killed me.
Yeah.
That's why that part of the book title. So I can't do it anymore. My goal is to keep people healthy and push them through the end of their 20 or 25 year career, and to have them avoid a post-retirement problem like drug or alcohol abuse, like any fill in the vice that retired cops, firefighters, soldiers do.
I mean, the life expectancy post-retirement, I know for law enforcement, is 5 years. What is it for firefighters? Probably the same.
Somebody just told me 18 months.
Okay.
A couple of days ago. Yeah. I mean, what a shame to do.
Absolutely.
20 or 25 years of service, retire, and have plans and have it end. Or
no plans.
Have you have it end.
Yeah.
Right?
It happens.
Or have no plans.
And I think that lack of adrenaline is actually one of the things that actually causes the issues, which causes the alcoholism, which causes all the stupid bullshit. We're adrenaline junkies at the core. I turn into adrenaline junkies.
I term myself a risk management specialist. I don't feel like I'm an adrenaline junkie. I don't crave danger. I crave calm in the face of danger, which was what I did for 27 years.
No.
We bring order from chaos.
But in those moments, you were flying high.
You were flying high.
That because you were getting it.
And you were somehow remaining completely calm.
Yep.
In the process.
Do you have ADHD?
Mm-mm.
I do. And I learned that that's a thing in crisis. In crisis, people with ADHD are significantly better under because our brain is already going 1,000 miles an hour.
Makes sense.
But going back to day one, I'm sure that your first scene was you had no idea what was going on, and then by the end of your whatever, I got it.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Even at the end of the career, there was still stuff. Maybe once a month where I'd run a call and go, haven't seen that one before. So it's never ending.
Right.
I mean, there's always going to be something new. It's just that after a point, not everything is new.
Right.
And it's just a natural progression through the career. It'd be nice though if mental health were nothing new, and when firefighters or first responders start to experience something, then it's not new. It's not a mystery. Hey, I'm doing this. I recognize that I'm doing this. I recognize that that's a sign or a symptom of PTSD, anxiety, or depression. And here's how we treat it. Here's what I need to do. The process is simple.
Yep.
I mean, every department has a different mental health setup for their personnel.
And some have none.
And some have none. But however, that's not an excuse.
No, it's not.
We can get counseling online now. There can be barriers to starting that, but once you do start that, that's, not having the resource in your town is no longer an excuse.
Agreed.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot to it, but it's really simple. Once you step forward and start your process, or if your department doesn't have the resources, use your insurance.
Yeah. And there are things, though, too, that people can be doing, such as we talked about before we went online here. Cold plunge, sauna, exercise,
Dude, there's so many
diet.
So many treatment modalities now.
There's getting that after the adrenaline and your body's all built up with that cortisol and adrenaline and all that, you should be going and exhausting yourself physically.
Right.
And dumping all that shit out. And then you're going to sleep better and you're going to have a better sex life. And, you're going to have all the, the mental clarity and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The mental health or the physical health aspect. I do not comprehend how people do not know and understand that those two are completely correlated.
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
Your mind is in your body.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They're not separate.
No. Those small changes in life. And again, I'm not going to go off and talk about you need to just clean up your diet a little bit, work out a little bit, push yourself a little bit, do something a little bit difficult.
Right.
Get your mind stimulated.
Yeah. Achieve something.
Have a goal.
Yeah.
Have a goal. And I think that you especially nailed it about, friends outside of the trade and the craft is paramount to leading a somewhat, normal life.
And here's why that is. If you only hang out with people from work, what happens when you retire?
Oh, yeah, no.
And they're still working.
You have no friends.
You're done. Or worse, you're going to keep hanging out with them, but they're going to be talking about it. You're going to get kind of organically pushed out of that group because they're going to be running calls and they're going to be talking about those calls that retiree wasn't on.
Right.
So now they're alienated from their friend group, from their trade, and trying to transition into a normal life.
This is something I have heard from so many different podcasts, and it doesn't matter if it's military, law enforcement, what doesn't matter, it's the loss of self.
Yeah, the loss of self and the loss of purpose.
Yes, that mission. This is my mission now. And that's literally how I have taken this, is that this is my mission.
Yeah.
And it's that loss of self. It's that loss of purpose. It's the, I know what I'm doing every day, and I know that my mission is good because I'm in the military. I'm in the whatever, law enforcement. We can talk about the different aspects where you think you're doing good, but you're doing some harm. But anyways, the criminal justice side of the house. Yeah. But and to lose that sense of self it's a death. It's a death of yourself.
It is, and you go. I think you actually go through the phases of grief.
Amen.
When you retire, you're pissed. You bargain. You go through these things, and then eventually you accept it.
You have to.
Some people don't.
Right.
Certainly. But you do have to grieve it.
Yep.
And the key to grieving, whether it's a relationship or a career, whatever has ended, is allowing yourself to feel those emotions and giving yourself the grace to not be judgmental about crying when a song came on.
Yep.
Or punching the steering wheel when somebody really didn't cut you off, but you're just pissed anyway. Allowing yourself to feel those things and go through that process is necessary.
Yes.
As is the process of your feelings after trauma. You got to give yourself some grace. You can't work your entire career judging yourself for feeling sorrow over loss.
Right.
Yeah.
Loss happens.
Yeah.
There is a process. We do grieve.
Yeah.
We're supposed to.
Unless you're a sociopath and you don't have any feelings toward the family who's,
Right.
dad you were doing chest compressions on.
I have no doubt that there are, in fact, a ton of sociopaths in first responder.
Everything in society is represented within the first responder and military communities.
100%. There are, but like you had stated earlier, though, there are the same characters, though.
Totally.
There are the same characters in every single, and I watch all these. There's some hilarious content creators that make anti-TikTok stuff, like worst
I'd be into
responder.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's all the cringy stuff that these people do, and they point it all out. Like it's all the same characters that we've talked about before. Like, oh man,
Yeah. Yeah. How would you describe those characters within PD?
I mean, you do have the one that is trying to prove himself and is the hothead and is screaming and yelling at everybody.
And he's got a chest rig and a thigh holster and a
right,
yeah.
right. The ultra tack guy and all that stuff, and then you've got the total useless slob. There was one, and in law enforcement, like you said, it's particularly the type that I did. We had my car in my driveway, so I got on shift in my driveway and then came home. So we weren't going to a station and meeting up or anything like that. Yeah. So you could be completely independent. You had the slob, and I will say though that like the majority of the ones that go into the law enforcement side, it's not the ones that were bullied in high school. Yeah, I'm sure there was a couple of those, but they did do it for the justice reasons. The superhero, and I want to wear the badge and the gun and chase bad guys and all that type of stuff. But yeah, you had then you also had the sergeants that were just 100% by the book. You know what I mean? That was just like, nope.
Yeah,
we're gonna read the manual.
We had company officers like that. Yeah.
I did have a captain who was not really a big fan of it. Anyways, I did have a captain. He was like, nope. The writing manual says we use Times New Roman 12. Like,
wow.
Yeah, legit. He'll know exactly who I am talking about as soon if he ever hears this. But it's just the same sort of. You have some of the dopey ones. Then you've got your gung ho guys, the SWAT guys, and the TAC guys, and all those types of dudes.
Yeah.
So, and then you had the ones that looked at it as a job. And I actually think that those ones get through it the best.
They certainly appear to. I think I agree with that.
They just like, man, it's just a 9 to 5. I show up, I do my work, I hang it up, I go home. And they're usually the ones that you don't see at off-duty stuff, parties and squad get-togethers. Yeah. It's like, nope, I'm good. I'm doing my own thing.
But that's what I was.
You were the one that were off doing your own thing?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You were the mix of all of it, though.
I hung out with other firefighters for probably the first 10 years of my career or so. And then after that, I didn't want to think about being a firefighter when I was off duty. I didn't want to see memorabilia or anything in my house. I didn't want to wear clothing that had a Maltese cross on it or said fire department or anything. I just didn't want to. I needed to mentally separate from shift when I was off shift.
I think that is a very good thing to do if you recognize it in the beginning and make a conscious effort to do that so that you can have that separation. But unfortunately, I'm going to make the assumption that you had just fallen into that because you just couldn't handle it anymore. You're like, well, I just want to forget about it. There's the difference.
Part of it was being married to another firefighter for the first part of my career.
Yeah.
You talk about not being, but it's interesting because at the start you're like, man, this is great. No. We relate on all these things, and we've got the exact same career, and we run the same calls, so we can talk about everything. But at some point, you don't talk about anything else,
right?
And you've got to have. It's like having people outside of the circle for friends. You've got to be able to just shut it off. I mean, if you can't get away from this, your 10-year career feels like you've done 20 because the other side of your life has been PD or fire.
They want to talk about the fun, cool stuff that they did. You want to talk about the fun, cool stuff you did, and it's just all the same. Yeah. Don't dip your pen in company ink.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Keep those two things very separate.
A relationship like that starts out looking healthy and good, and then it doesn't necessarily end well. because it's just a constant barrage of fire
and trauma bonding, and it's built on trauma.
Yeah. Yep.
It's all complicated, but it's so simple to fix.
Yeah. I mean, we know more about mental health in the first responder realm than ever before.
This is the part where I go off on cannabis.
I was going to ask number one, I was going to ask about how things are with Arizona Normal.
They're good. They're doing good. I had to take a step back because of my back surgery and all that. I'm still healing up from all that, but it's a really neat organization filled with really cool people. And it's been a fun journey to learn about laws. And, do you remember that old 70s, 80s cartoons about how something becomes a bill? You know what I'm talking about? The little bill.
I'm just a bill.
There you go.
Yeah.
But, to actually work that process with lawmakers and with senators and representatives and all, that's really been really, really neat.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate that they still keep me around even though I've been so absent. So just because of my back and all that. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Getting into the political spectrum.
With regard to cannabis or any other treatment modality, I'm encouraged by the fact that there's talk about normalization of psychedelic therapy now, and
so
cannabis is. I mean, we're almost at a point where it just becomes a normal.
Amen.
A normal thing.
A normal thing.
Yeah.
But the difference is, though, and I have had this conversation with people who are involved in organizations that talk about psychedelics. I have extremely limited experience when it comes to psychedelics or anything like that.
Yeah, me too.
But this is my appearance from the outside, and I do fully believe in using cannabis for the mental health aspects. And you want to use it recreationally, 100% go ahead and use it recreationally. But if you're using it for the medicinal side, it has a very specific purpose. Mm-hmm. What appears to be happening is that all of these special operations guys that are coming back from the military, and good for them, I'm not knocking any of them, I'm not saying anything negative. There is a ton of focus on psychedelics. There's a ton of focus on ayahuasca retreats and all that good stuff. Yeah. And it's like they've literally jumped over cannabis.
Yeah, I can see that.
They wait, time out. Like, some people are not ready for a psychedelic full trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, it feels, on the surface of it, it feels like they've gone from 0 to 1,000,000 miles an hour.
That's exactly it. And and it's like you're still dealing
with the strength of the therapy.
Yes. And it's like, I do believe, I don't want to call cannabis a stopgap, but I do think it is a measure that could be used in between and to help people process emotions. And so when I smoke and I do it with purpose, like, if it's 10:30 at night and you get a text from me and I'm attached to my feelings because cannabis allows me to, I'm going to tell you I love you, and but I mean it.
Right.
And that's the thing, though, is that it's like it's just been skipped over, and there's so much focus, and you have congressmen, you have powerful congressmen. What's his name? Crenshaw out of Texas, who's partnered up with AOC. It's a Republican, Democrat, two opposite sides, but they're coming together for psychedelics. Mm-hmm. And dude, I'm 100% for whatever therapy helps everybody. I don't care. Yeah. It just, like, on the cannabis side of the house, though, I think they're forgetting a lot. They're just jumping over it. Yeah. And that's annoying to me.
Well, we as a culture have a short attention span in the first place.
There's a couple of wars going on that nobody remembers.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of no surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, you touched on the number of therapies that are available is great. And same thing, I don't give a shit what people do, what people use, right, whether it's covered by insurance. Where you get into potential issues is your department's view and your department's stance on things.
Yes.
Particularly if you're in a driving position, or you could be subject to any kind of a test, that can become an issue.
Well,
a problem.
I know for a fact, I've had a firefighter sitting in that chair as well, and we talked about this stuff, and there are, in fact, firefighters that have their medical cards.
Sure. Yeah.
And absolutely, positively should be allowed to. Again, me personally, and get off of the freaking alcohol.
Yeah, and the thing about the thing about having cannabis on board in your life, if you're in a driving position, don't have it in your system, active in your system,
right,
while you're driving.
right.
Otherwise, fine. Yeah.
I'm going to make a really bold statement here, and I'm going to get crucified by some cops. I know that. I do 100% think, I've never tested it. I've never taken any steps to test it, but I do think that it absolutely would make me better at certain things to a limit. I would love to absolutely be taken out to a driving track, a law enforcement driving track, and put through it, totally stone cold, non-medicated, and then get medicated to the level in which I feel, not ripped out of my mind, but to a level that I feel that I would perform better with the focus, and see how I do.
Yeah.
So I think that would be an interesting thing to have done.
Guys, if you're listening and you have the ability to do that.
But to get some raw data on it as well.
It would be good.
And to get some, they said they're starting to do green labs. They call it, for the alcohol stuff, it was wet workshops. Okay. And they're calling them green labs now. So I'm trying to sneak into one of those. I'd love to show one of those. Sure. Yeah. But to get the actual information and how can this be used for mental health, and I'm sure it was the same. I have a real quick story. I'll tell you that it was a night where a San Carlos police officer was pinned down, and was when I was on SWAT, and we got the phone call. And I don't remember what time. It was like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning when we got the phone call. And I ran out to my car and I grabbed my PBT and I stuck it in my mouth and I blew in it. Now, this is an emergency situation, active shooting, pinned down officer, 3 hours away. I blew into my PBT and I was like, I'll be fine by the time I get there. So I was fine I wasn't drunk. I wasn't drunk.
AJ buzz driving is drunk driving.
But right. But the PBT showed that I would have been over the legal limit. So by the time I got there, I was good to go. I was under the legal limit.
Shit, dude. There were shifts where I and other firefighters drove to work and could have gotten a DUI going to work for the shift.
Yep. Showing up reeking of alcohol. Yeah, and it's like, if we could just get the goddamn alcohol out of there. But the rule was, now on SWAT was the sort of thing where if you're getting called out and it's an emergency, use your judgment. If you've had a drink or two, use your judgment. Right. On patrol, whatever, no. But it's
don't drink during your call week or what.
Right. Well, it went on SWAT, and then as a detective, we were always on call. Okay. There was no such thing as not being. That's exactly what I was just going to say. Where as a regular patrol or regular firefighter, that your next shift is tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. So don't drink for 8 hours prior to, and you're good to go. Yeah. It's the same sort of thing with smoking some weed, or inedible or whatever the case is. Yeah. Just give that time delay of 8-10 hours, whatever you want to call it. And
what happens if everybody from SWAT is out partying together?
There were times
you call out and you got everybody.
They had two teams. So we had two teams. Yeah, that would be bad. We would do squad parties where we would call the other SWAT teams in the area and say, we're down for the day. So we're down for the day, and then we were all out at the range and having a day, just having a squad day, and we were all at the range, and then something big did kick off, and the one sergeant was like, "We gotta go," and the other sergeant's like, "Oh no, we're eating we're cooking and shooting and having a good day." Yeah. So we let the other SWAT teams handle it. Yeah. So, but that was also different because I was state. So we would have to.
That's true.
We could go anywhere, and we went everywhere in the state.
Yeah, huge response area.
Yes, ginormous.
Yeah.
But it's fucking alcohol, man. That is the worst possible thing on the planet.
Yeah, and I'm at a point where, that alcohol use has ebbed and flowed throughout my career. When I was a firefighter, I mean, there were times where the drinking was out of hand.
Oh yeah.
But there were more years where I was racing bicycles and competing where I didn't. Number one, I didn't want that handicap.
Yeah.
With regard to using alcohol, but my body was just healthier.
Yeah.
When I didn't drink, and that's really what's evolved this summer with the way I feel in my body after doing the things that I've done, which I think we trailed off in Kansas City or in Missouri with my travel this summer.
Yeah, no, I have ADHD, so it goes everywhere.
Yeah, so I worked my way north from there, and after Missouri, the next thing that I really had to do was worked with a nonprofit in the backcountry, and that nonprofit
that's right.
takes.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's the Two Wolf Foundation, and they take veterans and first responders into the backcountry and do land stewardship projects. So we built like 500 feet of wood fence. We built a big wooden trailhead sign. So had a good week with those guys, and then spent probably the next 6 to 8 weeks in Kalispell, and then up on a river that borders a prominent national park up there.
Gotcha.
And so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just amazing. But, when you can fly fish every afternoon for 5 weeks straight, that's something special.
Yeah,
that
amazing.
was great. Then started working my way south through southern Montana, and then into Idaho, where I recorded. Went back up into West Yellowstone to do post-processing, and then worked my way south through Wyoming, and had a really great experience and some great time in southern Wyoming. And then headed down and saw my brother and nephew down in Utah, and yeah, I've just kind of let the cold weather chase me south. It was interesting though, because I started up.
You're a true snowbird.
I am right now. Yeah. I started out up in Montana seeing the leaves change, and I saw the leaves change all the way back.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I mean, again, I'm a native Arizonan, so I see the
palm trees don't change.
Right, the cacti don't change from,
right.
whatever.
Right.
So it is really neat when you get to actually, when you don't live in it, you're not familiar with it. It's really, really pretty to see.
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool thing.
It was.
So what is next for you?
A little more mountain bike racing. I it's been years since I did that, and I just, for whatever reason, looked at the race schedule, and I was headed down into Phoenix last week, and there was a race that I've done before that I love that was this past Saturday, so I did that.
Nice.
And I got enough fitness from this kind of left over from the summer that I can do that and not get destroyed on the trail.
Die.
Yeah, and I've got another one.
Really poor choice of words.
I got another one this weekend, and that's a 12-hour race. So I'm going to do that solo. It's a big endurance event. So that'll be this Saturday. So a little bit of mountain bike racing. I'm going to spend Thanksgiving with my mom here in the Valley. I've got a gig in Wisconsin coming up next month.
Okay.
That I will fly out to. I'm going to speak at a school out there. And then I've got things happening after the first of the year. I actually just talked to a prominent fire labor organization leader in Idaho, and looks like I'll probably spend some time up there.
Okay.
September, October, officially speaking up there, but then probably go through in February and kind of meet some key players in Idaho and in the Boise area, and then get up in Ski Sun Valley. But that'll be the one of the things this winter. So I'll ski, I'll snowshoe, and I'm looking forward to ice climbing.
This sounds terrible. This sounds horrible. The only thing is
it's so hard to decide what kind of cool shit I want to do.
It's if it wasn't so damn cold. That's the only problem.
You know
what I mean?
If you got the right gear, yeah. No such thing as bad weather, just bad gear.
True.
And I love those freaking hand warmer packs because
nice.
I've gotten my fingers and toes so cold at certain points over my life that they're more sensitive to that.
I'm sure.
Susceptible to that now. So yeah, I don't mind using the hand warmer packs and
use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
But your health is also, that's one of the things that's also been very beneficial to you, is maintaining your health. And
yeah, I mean, if you picture going through a mental health issue, but having a normal health issue at the same time, diabetes, obesity, lung problems because you're smoking, whatever it is. If you don't have your physical health, everything else suffers, and it can really make your mental health suffer. And I'm an example of how having good physical health can help your mental health.
It just makes you more resilient in everything. It makes you navigate adversity better, and how to problem solve it. Just having some physical strength is just better for you.
It really is. Yeah.
Like that cannot be stressed enough, and it cannot be understood. And I do have an issue when I see these, very large people whining about shit. And it's like, just get up off your ass.
Right.
We're all in different places. We all have shit going on. Some of us have injuries.
Yeah, society's gotten lazy.
Very. It very much has. And
under the guise of advances, under the guise
progressivism.
of project. Yeah. Well, even we used to go out and hunt for our food, or we used to have to go gather our food, or we used to have to go collect water.
Yeah.
All that stuff is right in front of us now.
I can change my AC settings from my phone if it's a little too chilly in here.
I can change your AC settings.
Like that's how gross it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we have to replace that, in the past, that necessity or requirement for movement, with our own motivation to do it now. Yep. Because the motivation is no longer the food, the water, or the gathering. And survival, the motivation has to be mental health, physical health.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't thank you enough.
Thanks for having me.
No. Thank you for calling me and saying I'm swinging through.
Yeah.
I love this. I'm jealous of your adventures too.
It's been good. It's been an amazing summer. For sure.
Very cool. What's next regarding like any more books coming out or anything like that? Any plans for anything like that? Why not your own podcast?
Okay, we'll go backwards. Why not my own podcast? Because there are millions of podcasts that start up every day.
Well, that's what we do. That's what us guys do who are bored and have something to talk. We think we got something to talk about.
The people that eventually get successful at it, have stuck with it like you have.
Yes.
And I mean, that's true of anything in life. I don't have the time to do it, because I crank everything up to 11, and if I did a podcast, I wouldn't have a choice. It would have to be that, and that would just consume too much.
It's a lot.
I don't think I would get the return on the investment.
Fair enough.
So when I first thought about that, because people have been telling me to write a book for years, and then some people said you should do a podcast, and I'm into OPP. That's other people's podcasts, because they've got if they've got a big audience like this, I don't
have a big audience yet.
But I can show up and I can reach the audience with one episode instead of working that hard at it.
I'm definitely growing. I'm definitely getting some traction. I'm very, very thankful. Like we talked about before, is that I have been extraordinarily fortunate to be able to have some of the really cool guests on that I have. You are number 1, 2, you're in the top 3.
Awesome.
And again, simply just for the fact that like, I just want to spread this message, and I just want to help people.
Yeah. It's one that's got to get out.
Amen.
And if you would like to have me help you get that message out, anybody listening or watching can reach out to me directly at rb603.net. And that website's got links to a bunch of interviews like this one. Tells you a little bit about who I am, what I've been through, and it's got all that contact information, social media links. So it's kind of one-stop shop for everything.
I want to ask this question, and I don't want to ask this question. But it's one.
That I will answer anything. Nothing is off limits.
It has to deal with the event.
Yeah.
I didn't ask the question, and I thought about it, and I was like, it's morbid curiosity.
Let her rip.
Did you see, feel anything?
No.
Okay.
I just went to sleep.
No white light. No nothing.
Nothing.
Interesting. What did that make you think? What do you think about that aspect of it?
My spiritual beliefs don't lend themselves to any kind of afterlife. How's that for gray? Therefore, I don't think I'm influenced by that, but I don't think that... Here's my belief. We do live on forever, but not in... My belief is not in the traditional sense. We live on forever in the people whose lives we touched and who we interacted with while we're alive. So your memory lives on forever. Whether that family remembers the firefighter's name who was there that day, right, or the cop who came in and helped and saved them that day, they remember somebody. And they remember me specifically. That they remember my name is not important, but they remember what I did. That's why I feel like it's important for me anyway, from that kind of spiritual karma, whatever you want to call it, standpoint, is that I want to do as much good as I possibly can and be remembered for it.
I think that's perfect. Thank you, Rick.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me.